Thanks for tuning in to the 6-3 podcast. I'm your host, Joel, with my co-host, Ben, and we're back again after, again, the state of Michigan is just gleaning with joy because these teams are doing great. Michigan football continues to romp their opponents, and the Detroit Lions have, I would still say, romping NFL opponents. It's even tougher to do. So we, again, are coming back with good news in this week's podcast episode where we're going to recap Michigan, Indiana, preview Michigan State, and then we are going to recap the Lions and Buccaneers and preview their probably toughest game of the year against the Ravens in Baltimore. So, let's start with Michigan. Then, Ben, obviously, the Indiana Hoosiers came to Michigan, and they came in with a 1-4 record, 0-2 in the conference, so nothing too impressive walking in. And they kind of had a quarterback controversy going into the game too. Tom Allen's been playing all their quarterbacks that he could. This week it came down to Taven Jackson to start, and he struggled. They put Storsby in. Storsby found a little more success on the ground. Still had very inefficient passing. Mm-hmm. The team together still had under 50% completion percentage. I think 14 of 29, and 2 interceptions. And then their only touchdown, it was their former quarterback turned wide receiver Donovan McCulley's double pass, which I thought we watched that game together at that point, and that was a dead giveaway. That was going to be a pass. So I don't know what the safeties were doing. That ball was thrown. That first pass was thrown like 8 yards behind the line of scrimmage. So it sucks to suck, but at the same time, we just came back again and dominated the rest of that game. Won by 45. So no complaints at the end of the game again. So what were your takeaways?
No complaints. Can't really. I got really no complaints about either Michigan or the Lions. I can't really,
short podcast. See ya.
Say too many bad things about it. I mean, it seems like every week, and this is going to be the case for probably most teams, just because there's so much film out there now of Michigan, is they'll probably have a drive or two early on that they find some things that work against the defense, just because they'll catch them napping on like a double pass or something like that, right? Or they'll have something that's schemed up that'll definitely work, right? But it just seems like Michigan and Jesse Minter and the coaches and everybody just do a great job of just kind of figuring out what's working for that other team and just shutting it off pretty quickly within a drive or two, right? And one of the things that's consistently worked for these other teams is some of the short passing game, like the quick passes underneath. But in all reality, like that's really hard for college QBs to consistently read a zone defense and figure out, where to go with the ball while also under pressure and while also, just consistently beat a team like with 4 or 5, 6 yards a pop passing the ball. Like that's extremely hard for a college team to do that. There's probably very few out there that are able to do that. There's probably some passing up, maybe a Washington or maybe an Ohio State. Honestly, there's a few teams out there that might have the ability to do that. Not really any of Michigan's opponents to this point. And really, I don't think this week will really change much of that. And Jesse Minter still has a bunch of changeups that he can throw at you. He's dropping defensive ends into passing lanes, defensive linemen into passing lanes, things like that to kind of stop some of that stuff. So, I think you're going to kind of continue to see maybe some annoying first quarters at times, or maybe some annoying drives here and there, some plays. But at the end of the day, I think this team adjusts really quickly on both sides of the ball, and they figure out what's working, and they kind of just put a stranglehold on these games pretty quickly. They're just extremely efficient, right? They don't make mistakes. They stay on schedule for the most part. They don't make big mistakes. The mistakes they do make are not something that consistently happens. You've only seen one weird turnover game all year from Michigan. That was that Bowling Green game.
Yeah.
And he just had a really weird game. Ever since then, he's been pretty much lights out. And the games before that, he was lights out. So at this point, you almost have to look at it as kind of a weird anomaly. So
I think for the first time in his career, really got in his own head. I think that's kind of what happens. That can't happen. It can happen to
Right.
anyone, even JJ.
Right. And, just a weird day. And I think Bowling Green made a couple nice plays too, right? And
Mhm.
just didn't, that's the game, right? That's fine, right? But I don't. This team can do anything, right? This team is as good as any team I've seen this year in college football. I didn't say they're the best necessarily that I've seen, although I think they are the best I've seen. But they're up there with the Georgias, the
Washington's. Yeah.
Washington. I know Georgia and Washington probably have been tested a little bit more by some better teams, although Georgia's schedule is not really that much better than Michigan's.
I mean, they struggled for Vandy again with
Yeah,
Vandy.
I know Washington just beat Oregon, so if you're talking just best win, they've
Yeah,
got
that's a big
that.
one.
But at the end of the day, this team is as deep and talented, top to bottom, and they're building more depth. Right, they're getting their starters out by the middle of the third quarter. Most of these guys, and just playing a lot of guys, and I think that bodes really well for the future, not just this season but later.
Against
But
starting competition on the other side. They're not the other
right,
teams aren't pulling their
right,
dudes.
exactly, and that's good. That's where they're at. They're building depth. I think after this week, or even during this week, maybe even because Michigan State typically has something going on in this game where they can keep it close. I don't know how close this week is going to be, this year's going to be, but um, they usually have something figured out for this game. But I would hope and maybe expect the starters to play longer, unless it just gets out of hand again. But I just don't think it's going to get crazy out of hand that quickly. Um, but I would think that the starters will be in a little bit longer just to try to build a little more continuity, and it's time to maybe start. Yeah,
Endurance too. You're just gonna hit the gauntlet pretty soon here after
yeah.
Purdue.
I mean, after this week, I mean, what bye week next
Bye
week, and
week
then
and then Purdue. Yeah.
Purdue, which Purdue stinks. If we're being honest, they've been
Yeah.
pretty bad. But then
They're not what they were for sure.
and then you've got the three
The
games that are
gauntlet. Yeah.
make the difference, right? And really, Maryland lost to Illinois last week, so I don't really know what they are either.
Yeah.
But
Illinois has always got a stingy defense. That's tough.
they do. But especially that Penn State and that Ohio State game, those are what
A
this.
lot of information to be gleaned from this weekend too with that Ohio State Penn State game.
Correct. Correct.
I know Michigan's going to have their eyes peeled. That's
Mm.
before their 7:30 game against
Yeah, I think it's
Michigan
at
State.
noon, so that should be a good one to see.
Yeah. Again, I to even follow up with kind of recapping how Michigan's played this year, substitutions have not been a complaint of mine. Adjustments have not been a complaint of mine. It's 100%. They're killing it and that fast of the game. And those are just intangibles. Those aren't even just winning on defense. Those aren't just winning on offense. Those are just the small parts of the game that build team, like you said, team continuity and give players valuable time against other team starters. That's going to bode well for long term if injuries happen to arise, God forbid, or even the future where maybe it does look a little more bleak for Michigan after this year. So a lot of importance to that, and just seeing how fast Jesse Minter adjusts on defense, how quickly the offense gets going. It's good to have Jim Harbaugh back on the sidelines helping call the offense too with Sharon Moore and Mike Hart. But if you had one complaint to make, and I know we're not really want to push a complaint here, but if you had one thing that, like, even if it's not a complaint, something that they really could work on that's going to definitely come in handy further when you're playing the Penn States, the Ohio States, Marylands of the world.
Pass protection from the tackles.
It's improved though significantly with Henderson in there over him.
Yeah,
sure.
from the tackles, overall pass protection though. I mean, JJ makes them look better than they are too, because he can escape a lot. So like the sack numbers aren't high at all. But overall pass protection from the tackles. I worry about the Penn State. I'm not as worried about the Ohio State game because they don't have elite edge rushers.
And it's home. You just feel good about it. Yeah.
Yeah. But the Penn State game, they got like 3 or 4 NFL defensive ends probably on that team right now. And they can really get after the passer. Now, can they stop Michigan's run game? I don't know, right? That's kind of Michigan, they had some of the same guys last year, and Michigan just barely threw the ball. They just ran all over them, right? So we'll see if that changed at all, or if they can do that. But that would be my biggest gripe to this point. It's just not quite as good as last year. Which
I think my if I had one thing, obviously outside of the tackles, because I think that one sticks out quite a bit. I mean, Barnhart's not the compared to the tackles we've had in the last couple of years, he's not there. Henderson, I feel like he's definitely an improvement over Hinton, but it's not like A1 barbecue sauce
Henderson's
either.
gonna play guard in the NFL. So I
Yeah.
mean he's got some longer arms, but like he's a
Mhm.
guard in the NFL for sure. So yeah, there's a ceiling, like there's a cap where it's just like the cap is just like pretty solid and good, right? I don't think he's gonna elite. He's not an elite tackle by any means.
I think mine is going to be. I mean, they're hit and miss. Because I've seen a lot of success from them, and I've seen just kind of bonehead plays from the safeties. I'm going to say the safeties tend to creep in a little bit too far sometimes. It seems like they fall asleep a little bit.
Yeah.
They've had
Yeah.
some great games, obviously, so I'm not going to dog all of it. But
Yeah.
there's definitely plays where it's like you see them creeping up or missing a cover two and catching slant guy or whatever when the other corner has to fall back. It's just I don't know. Safety play is corner play has been really actually outstanding, especially after we got Will Johnson back. Mike Sanders still continues to be solid, but Makari Page, Keon Sabs, they've had great games, but they've also played pretty boneheaded out there sometimes. So I think that's my one qualm, I guess, if I have to try to come up with one.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, some of it they more and some of the secondary guys in general have been hurt. So, and they're all back now, but they haven't all played together at once. I mean, Rod Moore had a tough first game back, and then now he's played pretty darn well since then. Sanders still's been pretty solid all year for the most part.
Mhm.
But yeah, they got Keon Sabb, who's like big plays, but also some pretty bad plays, right? So like, yeah, I agree. They've been a little more up and down, but I think that kind of comes back to like, all right, guys, let's just play the starters a little bit longer, and let's just play the guys that are going to be there later in the year. They're your guys, and because we've already built this depth through. They're 7-0 through 7 weeks, right? This depth is already built, and at this point, like you don't need to. I mean, I'm not saying you don't need to keep building it because you do, but like you also need to build the continuity in the defensive backfield and uh, wide receivers. Although they've done a pretty good job of sticking with most of the guys, and I do like some of the freshmen, but like mostly, honestly, the DBs for the rotating and some of the defensive tackles. Like I feel like they could stick with some of those guys a little bit longer, the starters, and I think you'll see a even more dominating performance because those guys are clearly just a little bit of a cut above. So
Looking forward now to this Michigan State rivalry game. It doesn't feel like a rivalry the last couple of years, but you know, they're a week removed from not even traveling Noah Kim after he's been their starter their entire year. Caden Hauser went out and actually almost pulled a surprise on Rutgers until they just absolutely collapsed.
yeah,
Um, but Hauser looked pretty effective for the most part in that game. I think he was 18 to 29, only 133 yards, but 2 touchdown passes against a stout Rutgers defense on the road. Obviously, the team unraveled late, blew a late lead. But I think Hauser's probably going to be the key to the game. Is he's going to be able to maintain this in such a limited action at this level and against a powerhouse defense that really doesn't let a lot of teams move the ball. The running game has been lackluster too. Obviously, Michigan State's always kind of been notorious for having a running back, whether you go back to Le'Veon Bell, Javon Ringer, Jeremy Langford, and then you got like they've had other running backs.
Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, Kenneth Walker. I don't even want to say that name, honestly. That's why TJ Duckett. But they've always been, that's kind of what their MO is. But again, I don't think they have that running back this year. So I'm not really concerned. I think Michigan State does play pretty sturdy defense at times, but mentally they just got in their own way, collapsed last week. And I think the same thing can happen if Michigan comes out to a crazy start. If they get up already like 14-17 nothing right off the bat, like I think they're gonna get in their own heads, and at that point, those guys to be ready to just leave or get in a fight in the locker room or something with somebody.
Yeah, I think it's to the point now. Michigan needs to start fast, right? I don't want an annoying first quarter because like that in rivalry games, that stuff kind of lingers, right? Um, and you're on the road at night. You know that the place is probably going to be rocking at least until Michigan takes the crowd out. I feel like if Michigan gets up a couple touchdowns early, a lot of those fans are just going to leave. I'm being
Yeah,
honest with you.
they're just gonna go drink,
It's
go to their
yeah,
college parties.
it's too cold. It's not worth. You know what I mean? Like it's really not. They're not going to stick around to watch their team get blasted the whole time. So, um, yeah, Michigan State's still pretty stout up front on defense. Their offensive line is not good. Their running
Which is
backs are
probably why their
pretty.
running backs are not doing well
Their
either.
running backs are pretty meh. Nathan Carter's okay, no, an all right player. They've got a bunch of like running back number threes, right? Solid running RB threes or maybe an RB2.
Maybe
Carter's
RB4
good.
on this Michigan team after we saw Benjamin Hall, but
That's true. Carter is a good RB2. I mean, he'd be solid. He was good at UConn too. So, you know, there's some decent players there. I mean, a lot of the. I mean, Keon Coleman transferred out. That killed him. Um,
Peyton Thorne also killed him. I mean, yeah.
Out really kills him. Honestly, I know they didn't like Thorne for whatever reason, but he was better than anything they have there now. And Kane Hauser, I mean, I think he does have a little bit of talent, and I, but I don't think not tonight, not or
Not in
not.
his second start. I ain't feeling that.
They'll have some stuff that's
They'll put a
schemed
statue
up.
up of him if he upsets the Wolverines in his second start with Michigan State. That's just
Yeah, they'll have some stuff schemed up for him that'll probably work, right? Um, but they're kind of a mess, and I just don't think they're very well coached at this point, and it's not their fault necessarily at this point. It's just kind of a mess of a team, and they're not they have some good players, especially on defense. They do have some guys that I like. Darius Snow is a good player. Jordan Hall is a very good player. Um, I like Dylan Tatum. They've got some guys, but they just can't bring it all together. And their DN stink. Their linebackers are bad. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly what Michigan's game plan is going to be going into this. Whether they're going to lean on the throw game or the run game, but like you know, I don't think it really matters. I think Michigan's just going to kind of do what they do, and I think they'll come out. I'm not going to anticipate as big of a blowout as we have for these last few games, just because it's a rivalry game and it's there. But I still think Michigan's going to win soundly.
again, and McCarthy has probably been arguably one of the most effective quarterbacks in college football this season. He's completing nearly 80% of his passes. Wolverines are smoking teams so bad that he's only thrown like 4 passes in the fourth quarter this entire season. So I want him to throw more in the fourth quarter, even if they have a lead. It's a team that we hate. Like it's okay to throw it up on them a little bit.
Yeah.
So run your playbook. I still think it's going to be probably 55-45 run game. I think Corum and Edwards are going to want to take this one. But I think you want to make sure McCarthy stays just efficient. He was doing his job as a quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks in the nation right now. I mean, you take away that Bowling Green game, and right now I think he's like sitting neck and neck right now with Penix Jr. So
Yeah, if he didn't have that struggle, if he just had what he normally puts
even if
up,
it was like one pick in that game, still I bet he's
and if
still.
he has what he normally was putting up, right? Like so 220 yards, efficient, couple touchdowns, run for 50 yards.
Mhm.
Yeah, he'd be pretty darn good. I mean,
Michigan's still undefeated too, so they also look at records when they look at that stuff. Like
yep,
he's got a
yep.
lot of things still going for him, and I still don't think he's out of the conversation yet. I'm not going to rule him out of that one, but
No, his numbers are not going to be what a lot of guys are. But if you
again, like I said, 4 passes in the fourth quarter.
pure efficiency from a pure efficiency standpoint, like what he gets yards per attempt and yards per completion, and just
What he can do with his feet. Yeah.
does with his feet. His feet are super efficient too.
Mm.
He's as efficient as any QB around. So, yeah, it is impressive for sure.
What's a score that you're gonna lay out on this one?
Um, I'm gonna say 34 to. I'll say 34 to 10. I'll give him 10. Touchdown field goal.
Uh,
It'll feel annoying, but it'll be like, wow, that wasn't never close.
I think 34 is a great score prediction, honestly. Um,
I'd love to pick them over 40. I just don't.
Michigan State still has some players on defense. It's like it's not
And
just like
the game is just going to be kind of slowed down. I think Michigan State will try to take the air out of it. So
any way that they get their crowd back in. Yeah, they're gonna probably hold on to it. So yeah, the air will probably feel like a boring game for a hot minute there.
yeah,
Yeah, I think 34 is a really good prediction because I also think, normally I wouldn't probably take field goals or 2 field goals on a team that's doesn't really like go, get
yeah,
the thumb up or anything like that. So I initially was thinking 38, but I think, yeah, rivalry game like this, Michigan State's going to probably be playing the best defense they can possibly put up against this offense. So it could very well be, even like 34 or 27. I think 27 is a worst case scenario. I think they break 30, but I don't think it's going to be 3 field goals. I think they settle for the field goal twice. And so I think 34 is a really good prediction. I'm going to be 38 though, just to be different. And I'm going to say, you said 10, man, I think it might be like 38-13, and they might not have a field goal, but I think they probably try to go for 2 just to try to get within a reasonable range so they miss it. And then it's like 38-13.
all right. I can
So,
see 13. 13 would be the most points Michigan's given up all year.
but that Caden Hauser's the real deal.
Yeah, whatever.
All right. Well, after that good news, Michigan football, let's focus here on the Detroit Lions. Now 5-1, 3-0 on the road, which again already feels like a pipe dream. Especially because a lot of people may not even pick that first road game of the year on Thursday night against Kansas City in Arrowhead Geha Stadium. That's crazy. But Tampa Bay, they went in the game with only 1 loss. So it actually felt like a legitimate game. I know we talked about it last week's podcast. Like this could feel like a challenge. We talked about Tampa Bay's got a pretty stout defense. And we saw that for a while in that game. We were talking in our group chat. Like this game is so boring. This is, Chinese water torture, right? And I think obviously the over the top pass JMO kind of broke that game. It felt like we're all right. We can figure out something. Jared Goff was super efficient, just taking chunk plays, whether it was 6 yards, whether it was 14 yards. We were finding ways to move the ball even after David Montgomery's injury early in the or late mid second quarter. It's probably gonna miss a couple weeks, but Craig Reynolds with like the block of the year, I think also put the juice back in that team. The fans that are traveling so doggone well right now, better than probably any fan base in
I think
right
it's
now.
not even
They're
close.
like literally filling out half the stadium, whether it's been Lambeau, whether it's been Tampa Bay, Arrowhead. They had a good chunk of fans.
Those aren't bad like fan bases like that they're that they're going to. Like
Yeah,
when they go to San Diego, first of all, no, their Chargers fans are not real. So especially in Los Angeles,
that's a straight up home game for Detroit.
yeah,
Too.
no, I'm serious though because no one's ever there, right? And especially if they continue to struggle a little bit, like the San Diego fans were not happy that they moved to LA, so a lot of those fans just said screw it, and they never traveled with the team at all.
They showed the
So
one fan, and she got like famous on a Pat McAfee show.
yeah,
The
she was
one
fun.
fan the Chargers had.
Yeah, that's her, right? She's the only fan. She'll be there. She can be a Lions fan now if she wants. She can jump on the bandwagon. I'll take her.
Apparently, she's also a Vikings fan, but other people are saying it's a conspiracy that the NFL pays these people to drop them
Well,
in the
maybe,
stadiums.
maybe, but then the whole thing with she was wearing Viking stuff, but then somebody said it was because her kids' team is the Vikings, which that makes sense.
Debatable. Paid plant.
Paid plant is more fun to think about.
Yeah, I just love good old conspiracy theories. But yeah, so you're right but these games almost all continue to feel like a home game no matter where they are. So that game especially is going to feel special. Baltimore is a really good fan base though. It's also still going to be cold, so it's not like Michigan fans excited to go be cold in Baltimore instead of here. So may not see the fan base show up the same way we have in the past, but I think it's going to be a test. I think going back here to the Bucs game though, but Baker Mayfield kind of rejuvenated his career there with the Bucs kind of, and I think obviously they were talking about during the broadcast, trying to follow the footsteps of Jared Goff, what he's done with Detroit after leaving the Rams. Can Mayfield do the same thing, leaving the Browns and the Rams, and come do it post Tom Brady era? So He has the receiving weapons. Obviously, Godwin and Evans are a dream to have downfield. Really solid defense to help provide opportunities to get the run support back. Yeah, this was a grind for a while, but Detroit continued to show that they're the better team throughout the entire game. I really haven't been nervous at all this year. Even in,
No,
they're obviously watching that game in Wisconsin with you for the overtime loss to the Seahawks.
that was
That
just
one
one.
was that one
I
was
was
worth a
really
pace.
annoyed by that game. That game was annoying, but yeah.
I still think eight times out of 10 we win that game, and we just took one of the two probably in that wheel. So it's tough.
Yeah.
And I just looking at after that game too, it's like what other than the Ravens and maybe the Chargers, but like you said, that's going to feel like a home game. And then the Cowboys towards the end of the season. I'm not worried about a game going forward. Detroit can play with anybody now.
They could win the rest of their games.
The
Will
Super
they? Yeah,
Bowl.
I do think
The
they'll
Super
still.
Bowl.
They could win the Super Bowl. Will they? No, they'll probably not. But
Your
they,
texts say
they'll-
otherwise. I got the screenshots to prove it though.
yeah. Well, I'm just saying stuff to say stuff now. But they shouldn't ever be out of any game. They shouldn't ever on paper they can win the rest of their games. They'll probably drop a game they're not supposed to. Every team does. Right? That's why there's only been two 16-0 teams, right? Now 17-0, right? It happens, right? But at the end of the day, they shouldn't they're never going to be outright out of it before the snap, right? When in previous years, even with some teams that ended up being okay, right? Like last year's team, there were some games going into it where I'm like, yeah, we don't have a chance in this game. Like we're gonna get smoked. And this year we're doing the pushing around. We're doing the bullying with a beat up roster right now too, mind you. So
That's another thing I've been impressed with. This whole next man up. The fact that we're pulling dudes like Divino Zigbo off, and we're having to take back Mo Ibrahim, and we've got Craig Reynolds running the ball, waiting for Jameer Gibbs to get healthy, and obviously Monty going out. And then
yep.
the secondary, Will Harris has been probably the biggest liability on the defense, but still makes plays.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's been fine. He's been actually pretty bad.
He's been pretty mad.
Pretty bad at times, but that's it. I can't really complain about a whole lot else on this defense. And if that's one thing and he's like you said, he still makes enough plays that he can be passable on the field. So
even if they don't like him, I still feel like if Atu Melifonwu can figure it out, right? They got someone else they can throw in there. It's just this next man up mentality where Dan Campbell believes in all these guys that they can come in at any given time, anytime they need them, and he trusts those guys to fill in just as admirably. Yep. And it's infectious. This team is bought in on what Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes are selling, and team players are going to want to come here. This is only going to bode well long term for this franchise too. And I'm here for it, man. It's been really fun. So with it being just the way this state has given us for football this year, just feels like it's making up for a lot of lost time, right? There's a lot of times where I just feel like I'm wasting my time being a fan of the state.
The Lions,
Michigan football, 2020, Lions football almost every year since 2002.
Lions fans deserve this. Lions fans really deserve this. And we've always said, I think as a Lions fan, they've always said the fans are great. And even Lions players in the past, even on some crappy teams, are these fans are great. And if they could just have a winner here, I think the world will kind of see, the rest of the sports world or NFL world will see, these fans are amazing. But they have to have something to cheer for. You can't just keep going 0-16 or just horrendous teams, right? And now they've finally got it, and this has been years and years in the making, right? And it is nice to see. It's finally nice to see this team play the way they're better than I thought they would be. I'll be honest, they're better. Their defensive line is better than I thought they would be. I thought this was what they might look like next year.
Especially losing James Houston week 2, right?
I thought they would need one more year to kind of build the front, especially against the run. I thought they would be better against the pass, but I thought they would need one more year to build the run defense that they have this year. The linebacker play has been so much better. I mean, Derek Barnes, Anzalone is playing the best football of his life. I mean, he's playing. I mean, he's playing. 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 He's playing
Yeah, and some people, I mean, I was watching Good Morning Football, and they all got like Lions jerseys and stuff, and like they were talking, hyping up Anzalone. Like
Mhm.
he's been huge, and he's still underappreciated, under the radar, but like the guy plays with 110% more every
Yeah,
single
now
week.
he's actually no. Now he actually is going the right direction though, which I can appreciate. He's making plays like in the backfield instead of 8 yards down the field, which is
Mhm.
huge. So, yeah, this team's just a little bit. They're better in the spots that I thought they would be good, but like I didn't think they were quite there yet. They're actually there now.
The
So it's
fact that Malcolm Rodriguez is now seeing zero plays on defense the
almost
last couple
no playing
games.
time, right? Jack
Yeah,
Campbell
because
playing defensive
Barnes,
end,
Campbell, Anzalone are just doing just fine.
right? Campbell's playing a bunch of defensive end too. He's playing edge a lot. In certain packages. If they're going to a pure 3-4, like he's actually the outside linebacker in that set.
And he's another guy. He's not getting the stats necessarily, but he's been so versatile, and he's been right by the ball every single play, whether he gets
Yep.
the point or not. Like it's he yeah, these draft picks have been special, and obviously I hope Gibbs is back. I know he was limited practice today, so that at least is a
It
trend to the right direction. He's
sounds
probably
like
going to be active.
it sounds like we're looking promising, hopefully. Even if it's back for 12 to 15 touches. Like I'm not saying
Yeah,
carries, just touches. Like
you
that
still want that explosiveness
yeah,
on
that
the
release
field.
some stuff off of Reynolds. Reynolds can be the kind of the between the tackles guy, especially this week.
Mo
Gibbs,
Ibrahim is there, Davino Zigbo. Who
yeah.
knows?
I mean, they didn't run the ball great last week
They,
at all.
but we didn't
Really
expect them
well.
to. The Tampa Bay Bucks probably had the best run defense we'll play maybe all year.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
the Ravens again. We'll talk about them here shortly,
Yeah.
but it's
Yep.
this is the defense has been really solid for Baltimore too. So let's kind of talk about this. This is a matchup here at M&T Bank Stadium. 4-2 Ravens. Um, against 5-1 Detroit. And
Yeah.
I think it was pretty much a boring dud game for the Ravens offense last week, too. They relied on Justin Tucker, who stole the game from us last time with a record long field goal. Kicked 6 field goals in that game against the Titans, who we don't think are very good. So the fact that they had to struggle to get field goals against the Titans was interesting. Obviously, Zay Flowers, he scored his first NFL touchdown there. It was a London game, and I feel like London games, maybe the players have jet lag, but they're not good. I'm like super proud of the product. It's like London's never going to want a team if we keep playing like this. But
Yeah.
the defense did stack the Titans quarterbacks, which ended up being Malik Willis later in that game 6 times.
Mhm.
Roquan Smith is tied for 4th in the league with 63 tackles. But then obviously we talk about the Lions here. And Jared Goff was just super efficient, spoiled the Tampa Bay Buccaneers popsicle party. I think the first time they wore those jerseys since 2012. Amon Ra, St. Brown, PPR nightmare after just bouncing back from an abdominal injury.
Yep.
He had 12 catches in that game. And they lost David Montgomery. They didn't have the rookie rusher, Jameer Gibbs. Hopefully he's back week 7. I just Ravens are still actually favored to win this game slightly. I think it's 3 points. But I'm I'm pretty convinced. Again, it's tough. I feel like I can't pick the Lions. Just I'm probably going to pick the Lions every single week if I don't pick the Ravens this week. I think I'm leaning. I just the last time the Lions figure out how to stifle, Lamar Jackson. Jackson did almost nothing on the ground last time. It was a boring game, and it came down to a Bush League delay of game that was not called, and a record long field goal. Just a nightmare. And so I think even when that was Detroit's worst team under Dan Campbell, and they figured out a way to limit the damage. Obviously, Aiden Hutchinson, even being one more year experienced, he's not going to be crashing so hard. He's probably going to play great contain, I feel like, in this game. I'm very convinced that if Aleem McNeil, Isaiah Buggs, and Benito Jones have nice games, and perhaps even Josh Pascal, if he's coming back, I feel pretty good about them being the key to this game, and then them figuring out a way at the edges to kind of push in Lamar to try to go down the middle, and hopefully those guys are just waiting there for him to eat him up. So I feel pretty good about this game. You want to force Lamar Jackson to be a pocket passer because that's really not his game. Mark Andrews may be a liability, but like Jack Campbell's been great in coverage. Anzalone's still having a great season. So it's like keep an eye on Mark Andrews. Speedy slot guy like Zay Flowers, keep an eye on him. They have the best receiving core. They didn't have a great receiving core last time they played Detroit. So that's the other thing to watch out for. Can these corners buckle down. I think they can. Cam Sutton's done really well all year. Jerry Jacobs has done well the last 3 weeks.
Yep.
I'm feeling pretty good about this game. So Kirby back. He's still Tracy Walker. I like the situation we have back there. Brian Branch is technically even a game time decision this week. So
I don't think he'll play, but I
don't think so either. Jonah Jackson sounds like out too again. But they played Coyote Oshika over Helvaitai. So that was interesting. Oshika did great though. I mean, I think it really helps when you still play around the rest of that offensive line. But let's hear your thoughts in this game, and then we'll do our predictions to close it out.
I think it's going to be an ugly game. Defense led, because I think both teams will kind of muck it up, because I think both coaches are completely okay with that. And unfortunately, it's going to come down, not necessarily going to come down to, but unfortunately, I think I'm going to give the edge to the Ravens because they have Justin Tucker. I think they're going to be able to be able to kick longer field goals. I think they're going to be able to have that flexibility where the Lions just don't have that with Riley Patterson.
Yeah, anything 50 plus is a shot in the dark.
Yeah, and he's not horrendous from inside of 50, but he's not going to be able to kind of win a game for him. So, and that's okay. So
I know it's not one of it's like this is a game where you're like, if you aren't drinking the Kool-Aid already, this game will put you over the top drunk in heaven in blue Kool-Aid. Like, but as a realistic Lions fan, still seeing everything that we have, the promise, if this game is even within a score, it's like, I'm not going to be mad about this. Nope. Like, even a 10-point game or less in Detroit's in it. It's like, I hate just like.
If you're Detroit, you should expect to win this game because you're good enough to win the game if you're the Lions.
I don't like moral victories, but like, if you're winning 10 points in this game.
Yeah, if you're a Lions fan, though, unless they're getting blown off the field or something, you're going to feel pretty good about it regardless of the result. So I'm going to pick a score. I'm going to pick 20-14. So I'm going to give the Lions touchdowns, but I'm not going to give them any field goals. I'm going to have Patterson missing a couple.
It's 2 field goals. Okay.
They'll be long, and I think
if they give him one chance to do a 50 plus though, and he misses it, they're going to go for it. Those circumstances at that point. That's the way Dan Campbell plays.
Suddenly, like they have to be more aggressive. I think that feeds into the Ravens a little more. And
I'm actually going to take 2 touchdowns by Detroit, and I'm going to take a Riley Patterson field goal probably in like the 39 to 43 range. So that gets us at 17. I think Lamar's going to run for a touchdown. I think he's going to pass for one for Mark Andrews, and I think Justin Tucker may hit like 3 field goals in this game too. So we're looking at 23-17. I'm taking 23-17 Ravens.
That makes sense to me, and that sucks, but it's just kind of one of those things where, okay, their defense got us right a little bit. Got us on a day where we didn't have a running back that could control the game. That's what you're running into when you don't have Montgomery. Maybe Reynolds can. I've seen him do it before, but it's more unlikely.
Yeah, he does. He's done the times I remember. He said 2 100-yard games. I think he went back to back 2 100-yard games that one year, and they were against pretty soft defenses. Though I think the Ravens are pretty talented defensively, and I don't know if it'll be like 10 carries for 15 yards, but I think it's still probably going to be somewhere around 11 carries for 31 yards. We'll see what we get. It'll be an interesting week, but don't be too disheartened if they come away with the L in this one. Still a lot of easy games that they should be coming away with. So as long as they don't take this too personally, we'll be fine.
For sure.
All right. We'll see you guys next week then. Thanks for tuning in.
Yep. Thanks.